Welcome back. You are watching the press preview, a first look at what's on the front pages as they arrive. It's time to see what's making the headlines with the editor of the Courier in Dundee, David Clegg, and the former Conservative Special Advisor, Anita Boateng. They'll be with us from now until just before midnight. So let's see what's on some of those front pages for you now. Another turbulent day on the money market, sparked by US trade tariffs, is the main story in The Guardian. The Times, meanwhile, says that Britain has been told by the US that talks on a trade deal will not reduce the current 10% tariffs on British goods in America. News that the EU may start taxing major US tech firms if talks with Washington over trade tariffs fail is top story in the Financial Times. The Metro leads with a series of social media memes released by China mocking Donald Trump over the trade war, one depicting him and members of his team working in a shoe factory. Prince Harry's secret visit to Ukraine to meet injured victims of the Russian invasion is top story in The Telegraph. The Mail too leads with that story. The Express returns to its campaign for assisted dying with news that record numbers of British people are signing up to end their lives at the Dignitas clinic in Switzerland. The Sun reports on a shoplifting epidemic targeting stores of the Greggs bakery chain. And The Star has a pun-laden story about efforts to clean up human waste left behind by astronauts visiting the moon. For the record, the last ones left in 1972. A little while back. We're joined tonight by David Clegg and Anita Boateng to take us through the papers. Welcome to both of you. Let's start again with the tariffs. The front page of the Guardian. Further market turmoil as White House says China tariffs are 145%. That's 125 on top of the existing 20%. Record mind-boggling figures.
Yes. The numbers are so large that it can be hard to understand them or put into context. I think what was really interesting about today was that after Trump backpedaled and said that he was going to put a 90-day pause on these tariffs, the market responded positively to that initially. But what we saw today was when the realization that this potential trade war with China was still very much live and ongoing, and the damage that was being done, even with the 10% base rate that everyone else is still facing. And I think ultimately the fact that the entire global economy is now being shown to be on the whims of Donald Trump, someone who's capricious and irresponsible and extremely unpredictable. So that the Guardian leads on further market turmoil. I think that is almost certainly going to continue to be the case as this runs on. And regardless of the fact that there was almost this sense of optimism from some quarters when he pulled back, it's quite clear that that is just one staging post in what is going to be a really bumpy journey.
And commentators saying today that this market turmoil is probably going to be the new norm, Anita.
Yes, and that could be really extraordinary and have profound consequences, not just for Wall Street and people that have shares and that kind of thing, but actually pensioners, and in particular, people that are coming up to the kind of end of their, reaching retirement, could find themselves with a kind of pension pot that's significantly depreciated on what they were expecting. So there could be some real-world impacts for his voters or those that he is purporting to kind of stand up for. And the other thing that's really fascinating about this, really, is in some ways the Guardian is reflecting one of the reasons why Donald Trump is able to do this, which is that the Democrats simply cannot decide what the problem is with what Donald Trump is doing. So the story talks about how Chuck Schumer says that there's sort of chaos and it's all a game to Donald Trump. And then you have the Democratic House Whip saying that Trump is sort of using corruption in some way, that he's sort of telling his true social subscribers to buy the stock market before things happen, and it's all about corruption. I sort of think that it's neither a game to him, nor is it corruption. I think there is a kind of genuine endeavour to do something that's good for the US people being very badly implemented, and I think that actually their attack doesn't really take it seriously.
Think he's clear on what his objective is?
No, I don't think that at all.
Okay.
But I think the idea that he's doing it because he thinks it's fun, I think is actually does a disservice to the seriousness of the issue and the need to win people over, and the fact that they feel as though almost nothing has worked, they need to try something different. And to say, well, it's all a game to Donald Trump, I think is just sort of denigrates them as well, because they take seriously the issues.
But David, what about this accusation of market manipulation, something that you've raised in the article?
Well, that is something that's been raised today by a number of senior Democrats. I feel it's certainly going to be difficult to make it stick in the world of no accountability that he operates on. I also think there's a level of premeditation, and the evidence for which this particular claim has been made on it, when put on Truth Social, it's a good time to buy. I would not claim to be an economics expert or a stock market expert, nor would I claim to have a line to what Donald Trump is planning tomorrow. But even I knew that when the market is very, very volatile and crashing, that's a good time to buy if you have money to speculate with. So I don't see that sticking. The one thing that I do think that I would maybe differ on from what Anita was saying there is that I think there is an element of the fact that, like all good populists, Donald Trump has found something which has been causing concern and does have a problem, and that the previous regimes have failed to address adequately, and that therefore has caused discontent. It has been clear for a number of years now, I think, that the benefits of globalisation, that members of almost all countries there's been a sense that the benefits of that are not being properly distributed, or that the people are not seeing those benefits properly. Donald Trump has put his finger on that, and he is now he's now doing something that he can claim that is trying to tackle it. But it's not doing anything to take away those negatives. In fact, it's just causing chaos, and it is not clear to me or people with more expertise in the economy that what he is doing has an end game, an objective, a strategy, or an ultimately positive outcome. And I think what is the real concern there is that, as we've said, everyone's going to be affected by this. It's not just going to be the super rich. It's not going to see a redistribution or benefit the American worker. We could see real chaos in lots of American industry with this as well. So I think the issue is, how does the rest of the world now respond to this when you have someone that's not really open to logic or normal rational debate?
Anita, let's turn to that, and we'll talk about the UK response. The Times front page saying that the soundings coming out of the White House is that 10% tariff will not be lessened, and also, 25% tariffs imposed on car, steel and aluminium. Cars are Britain's single biggest export to the US, but the soundings are that there are not going to be any further reductions.
Yes, and there was a quiet sigh of relief in Number 10 when it was announced on Tariff Day, on Liberation Day, when it was confirmed that the UK would be subject to 10% tariffs, and others, such as the European Union, whisper it quietly, the benefits of Brexit, were going to be subject to 25% tariffs. But now we're in a situation where the rest of the world, with the exception of China, is in the same boat. And so the question becomes, what is the UK getting from its approach, and how is the UK going to remain resilient in the face of that? Because the Times piece talks about, Kevin Haslett, who's the senior economic advisor to the White House, basically says this is going to be the baseline. It's going to take an extraordinary deal. And the question is, does the UK think it's in a position to get an extraordinary deal? My understanding is there is something on Trump's desk, metaphorically speaking, that constitutes some form of a deal with the UK, but whether or mitigate the 10% baseline tariff and, critically, the 25% tariff on things like cars, which is Britain's biggest export to the US, remains to be seen, but seems unlikely.
Do you think the policy of not retaliating thus far has served the UK well?
No, I don't think that it's really been a factor. I think I was really struck with some of the language that actually the Chinese Finance Ministry used, which was to describe Trump as a bully. So, while this is a very complicated, economic bully, but while this is a very complicated subject, actually I think that analogy is quite apt. Trump is a bully, so what does he respond to? How do you deal with a playground bully?
David, we're going to leave it at there because we're going straight to New York for a press conference following that helicopter crash in Hudson.
Deputy Mayor for Administration, Camille Joseph Varlock, the Fire Commissioner, Robert Tucker, the Police Commissioner, Jessica Tisch, and the Emergency Management Commissioner, Zach Iscol. We are here on the scene at Pier 40 on the west side of Manhattan, where earlier today a passenger helicopter crashed into the Hudson River. Our response was swift and coordinated. We have the FDNY, the NYPD, the Office of the Chief Medical Examiner here on the scene assisting with rescue efforts. New York City Office of Emergency Management was coordinating efforts on the ground with our public safety agencies. As our state and federal partners, including the FAA, the Port Authority, and the United States Coast Guard, the National Transportation Safety Board, the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers, and our partner agencies in New Jersey. When an emergency like this happens and strikes, this team responds with expert speed and professionalism. I want to thank all of our brave first responders for assisting in the rescue efforts and the ongoing investigation into this tragedy. For more information, I would like to turn it over to Mayor Eric Adams.
Thanks so much, DM Daughtry. Our hearts go out to the family of those who were on board and all 6 who were on board of the helicopter. It's almost reminiscence of the plane going down here on the Hudson River, but thank God we didn't lose any lives back then. It's still fresh and it's still new. The investigation is ongoing, and we have the entire family members. We're lifting them up in prayer. Here's what we know at this time. At approximately 3:17 this afternoon, we began receiving multiple calls for a helicopter that crashed in the water. These calls generated the response of many agencies, as Deputy Mayor Daughtry stated, including FDNY, NYPD, the Port Authority, and our Jersey partners, the police officers in Jersey as well, and the Coast Guard. 3 adults and 3 children were on board a Bell 206 helicopter that had left from the downtown Skyport just about 3 p.m. The pilot and the family visited from Spain, what our preliminary information has at this time. Members of the FDNY and NYPD harbor units arrived at the scene, and divers from both agencies entered the water. At this time, all 6 victims have been removed from the water, and sadly, all 6 victims have been pronounced deceased. Again, we're praying for the families and our gratitude to the rescuers and the courage that was displayed in their dedication. I will now turn it over to Fire Commissioner Tucker.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Good afternoon, everyone. As the mayor said, at approximately 3:15 this afternoon, numerous calls were received for a helicopter crash in the Hudson River. We have FDNY assets right up the road here, and we launched our boats immediately. This operation was a joint operation between the FDNY and the NYPD. Our rescue swimmers were in the water shortly after the call and recovered some of the victims. We worked very closely with the NYPD divers on this, and I think this tragic day does indicate just how the spirit of cooperation between the NYPD and the FDNY is alive on the streets and in the water. So thank you very much.
Good afternoon. The mayor covered most of it, but perhaps I have a few details to add here. Obviously, this is an ongoing investigation, and all information that we'll provide is preliminary and subject to change. At approximately 3:17 this afternoon, multiple 911 calls started coming in reporting a helicopter crash in the Hudson River near the New Jersey coastline off the coast of River Drive in Hoboken. NYPD units from aviation, harbor, scuba, and patrol all responded, with our first units arriving at the site within minutes. Our NYPD divers entered the water along with rescue personnel from FDNY, Port Authority, and various New Jersey agencies. According to the manifest, aboard the helicopter were 6 people, 1 pilot, 2 adults, and 3 children. NYPD divers pulled 4 people from the crash site, and FDNY divers recovered an additional 2. Immediate life-saving measures were undertaken on the vessels at the scene, as well as the adjoining pier. 4 victims were pronounced dead on scene, and 2 more were removed to local area hospitals, where sadly both succumbed to their injuries. Names are being withheld at this time, pending family notification. Here is what we know about the flight, and this is based on flight tracking software. A Bell 206 helicopter flying for the tour company New York Helicopters took off from the downtown Manhattan heliport at 2:59 p.m. The aircraft flew south before turning to fly north along the Manhattan shoreline up the Hudson River. At 3:08 p.m., the helicopter reached the George Washington Bridge and then turned again to fly south along the New Jersey shoreline. Shortly thereafter, the aircraft lost control and hit the water just a few feet off the coast of Pier A Park in Hoboken. The cause of the crash is currently under investigation.
All right. We have a few questions. Go ahead. Can you give us the ages, please, of all the occupants?
We don't have that information at this time, and we're holding until complete investigation.
Go ahead.
Could you tell us about the
One at a time, please, Mark.
Could you tell us about the recovery of the helicopter? Is the helicopter submerged in the water? How did divers find it?
I'm sorry, Sam?
How did divers find the helicopter? Is it submerged? And what happens now with the recovery?
The helicopter hit the water, we believe, inverted, and it was the cabin piece was visible above the water.
Mark, go ahead.
Do you know why the family was in town? Was that vacation?
No, still preliminary investigation.
Jen?
Any background on the pilot? Any past incidents with him before? Perhaps anything in the crash from the standpoint?
This is still, as you see, this is fresh. All this is preliminary, and we're going to look into that.
Time for 2 more. Go ahead.
Do you have any idea of how old the helicopter was, the age of it? And also, we had witnesses telling us that helicopters sometimes have to stop in midair, and there were pieces of the helicopter falling off before it actually hit the water. Have you heard of that? Do you know why? As part of this investigation?
You have anything on?
Yeah, I think the entire incident is under investigation by the NTSB and the FBI and obviously local authorities as well.
Is that something though that you have seen, that you have heard witness accounts of?
It's consistent with 911 calls and witness reports.
Last question. Go ahead.
I just wanted to ask the genders of the people that were on the board, the children especially.
Still an investigation. We want to be cautious about releasing any information until we have been notified family members and the communication with the consulate.
Cassie, want to proceed?
Yeah. And before we close, just lastly, when myself and Commissioner Tucker arrived on the Jersey side of the Hudson River, we were met by the first responders, and they told us they did everything they can to try to save these victims. And you can see the trauma in their face. They did everything they can, and they wanted me to make sure that I made that public. They really tried their hardest. So thank you. Yeah.
Thank you all so much. Thank you.
So that's the end of the news conference started by the New York Mayor, Eric Adams, in which he says that his heart goes out to the family of those on board. 6 people were on board. An investigation is ongoing. And at 3:17 this afternoon, the Mayor said that multiple calls came in of the helicopter crash. As we say, 3 adults and 3 children on board. The pilot and a family visiting from Spain, as far as they know. All 6 victims have been pronounced deceased. We did hear from the fire commissioner, who said that their boats were launched immediately and the rescue swimmers were in the water shortly after the call, and they recovered some of the victims. A further speaker told us that 4 people were pronounced dead at the scene and 2 died in hospital. That investigation ongoing into that fatal helicopter crash into the Hudson River this afternoon. Let's take a look at the weather for you now. Well, the next couple of days will be mainly warm and sunny, but Sunday will bring cooler, more showery conditions. Most places will have a fine start with a patchy frost in the south, but the northern and western Isles look grey, damp and windy. There'll be some fog around, mainly for Ireland and the northwest and southeast of England. Well, that fog will soon lift through the morning to leave sunshine for most, but a few patches may linger near the Channel and western Irish coasts. The windy north of Scotland will stay rather dull too, with a little rain for Shetland. It'll be cooler there, warm again for most others, with 23 Celsius, 73 Fahrenheit possible in the south. Coming up next on Sky News at 11, we'll have more on that helicopter crash, plus more on the turmoil in the markets as Donald Trump claims the whole tariff turmoil is going to plan.